It's the Iron Bowl, but isn't it simply Alabama as the hammer and Auburn the nail? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Tide and the Tigers, arguably the greatest rivalry in college football. Ohio State, Michigan, Auburn, Alabama. Those are the only two that I believe have a claim and right to say this is the greatest rivalry. So you four fan bases can battle it out. Everybody else, although I love rivalries across the nation, those are the only two that historically I believe can say that we are number one. Army-Navy, different category completely. All right, let's get to the history. Then we break down the 2018 matchup. Alabama leads the series 45-36 and one tie. Auburn won 6 of the first 7, which somewhat surprised me because Alabama, being arguably the greatest program in the history of college football, Auburn more in the top 15 range. I thought Alabama would have been more successful at the beginning of this series, but Auburn won 6 of 7 to start it out. We move to 1958, that of course historic in college football and particularly in Tuscaloosa when Paul Bear Bryant, formerly of Maryland, Texas A&M, Kentucky, took the reins at Alabama. He lost his first matchup with Auburn. He also lost his last matchup to the Tigers 23-22. In between, he was pretty successful at 19-4. So overall, the Bear won 19 of 25 matchups with the Tigers. They split 14 matchups, did the Tide and Tigers between 1983 and 96, 7-7. Tommy Tuberville, of course, famously won 6 consecutive games during the 2000s before he was ousted in that final game when Nick Saban did the trick 36-0. But Tommy Tuberville's 2004 team, of course, was denied a chance to play for the national championship despite winning over the Tide 21-13 and completing an undefeated season as they did in the Sugar Bowl against Virginia Tech at 13-0. Nick Saban, like Bear Bryant, lost his first game against Auburn, but then things turned out fairly well for Mr. Saban as well. Nick Saban, 7-4 against Auburn, so the Tigers have held up pretty well against the greatest coach of all time. All right, 1964 was the first game on national television between these two. Joe Willie Namath led the way for the Tide as Bama won at 21-14. Fast forward to 1967, the first night game played in a heavy downpour. The field was a mess, and Kenny Stabler, another in the line of the great Alabama quarterbacks, Starr, Namath, Stabler, ran 47 yards for the game's only touchdown, the run in the mud, as Bama won again 7-3. 1972, improbable finish for Auburn in coming back from 16-3 down in the fourth quarter with 2 blocked punts for touchdowns to beat Alabama 17-16, which has spurred on a chant that has resonated even to this day by Auburn fans to have Bama punt, Bama punt. 1982 was when Bo went over the top. We referenced this as Paul Bear Bryant's final game at Alabama, and Bo Jackson made it a downer with going over the top of the defensive line. If you've ever seen the classic Walter Payton, Marcus Allen, Bo Jackson leap over the top, this was one 23-22 as Auburn went for it late in the ball game to break a 9-game winning streak by the Tide. And this was Paul Bear Bryant's final regular season game. He went on to win the Liberty Bowl over Illinois, but 60 days later, Paul Bear Bryant passed away. 1985, Van Tiffin with a field goal of 52 yards as Bama won at the gun 25-23. And in 1997, Auburn won at the gun with a late field goal as well. Legion Field was the home for most of these matchups. That's why Jordan-Hare Stadium first hosted this game not until 1990, and Alabama won for the first time in Tuscaloosa. Can you believe it? In 2008, and that was that 36-0 game that we mentioned between Saban and Tuberville that sent Alabama to the SEC championship game against Florida. In 2009, Bama was heavily favored en route to a national championship, but they only completed that championship run when Greg McElroy led a 7-minute drive through a touchdown pass to Roy Upchurch on a swing pass as they rolled right, and Bama won late against Auburn in that one, 26-21. And again, moved on to the national championship win over Texas, the Tide's first national title in 17 years. The very next season, it was Cam Newton as the star as Bama led 24-0. The Tigers mounted the largest comeback in the history of this series, 28-27, and Auburn won the national championship over Oregon. 2013, kick 6. Need we say anything more? Alabama, defending national champion, at Auburn, looking to tie the game at 31. Looking to win the game 34-31. It gives up the kick 6 that came all the way back. And Auburn instead went to the SEC championship game, went to the BCS championship game, and denied Alabama for one of the few times in Nick Saban's era with the Tide. The very next season produced the most prolific scoring game in the history of the rivalry as Bama won 55-44. They came back from 36-17 down. Big games turned in from Blake Sims and Amari Cooper in this one. As yes, Bama won the shootout 55-44. And just last season, the Tide traveled to the Plains at number 1 ranked in the country. Auburn won the SEC Western Division Championship, upsetting the Tide 26-14. This may be the most meaningless game in the history of the series because what it did was, by winning, Auburn had to face Georgia again after blasting the Georgia Bulldogs at home. They were susceptible to a rematch and lost that game in the SEC championship game, which of course denied Auburn of going to the college football playoff. And it protected Alabama from having to play Georgia in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. And this Tide was selected, despite the loss to Auburn, to go to the college football playoff. All right, this year's matchup. We've got some news on the medical front. Damien Harris has been cleared of concussion protocol. The senior will strap it up for the final time for the Alabama Crimson Tide at home. He's the leading rusher and one of the greats in Alabama history at running back. Offensive line injuries include Alex Leatherwood and also Deontay Brown. They both should be okay to play, but it's still not definite. That plays into Auburn's hope. Auburn's hope is defensive disruption. This is where Auburn may have an advantage, maybe not. It's not that clear-cut that anybody has any advantage against any unit for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But if there is one, it's a devastating wrecking crew of a defensive line by the Auburn Tigers. Nick Coe, 13.5 tackles for loss and 7 sacks. Dontavius Russell. You've got Marlon Davidson. Derrick Brown is a blur off the edge. Auburn could dominate up front, especially if Bama's banged up. That is the hope. That is the narrow path to victory for Auburn because they have a marginal secondary. It's decent. It's good. They have a bunch of 3-stars back there with not exceptional speed, not exceptional playmaking ability, but they've got experience in the secondary, which should help against an Alabama passing attack that has been not based on the overall statistics because they don't play the entire game and don't have to throw the ball the entire game, but based on efficiency and big playability is as good as any in college football. Tua going downfield to his number of targets. So the second best sack total in the SEC belongs to Auburn, also a top 3 finish in tackles for loss, and it may be the most disruptive and dominant run-stopping and pass-rushing unit that Alabama is going to face this year. Even better than Mississippi State, despite not having the end stars in Jeffrey Simmons and Montez Sweat. Auburn may be better than Mississippi State up front, and that is the key for Auburn in terms of devastation. Now, obviously, they've got to hold their own in other areas and not be overwhelmed in other areas, and that's going to be the problem because offensively for Auburn, you've got Jarrett Stidham. Good quarterback, not great. He can run. He's mobile. He ran for about 40 yards against Liberty last week. He can break, contain, and pick up some third down conversions, but he's not going to scare any defense, and certainly not this one. 61% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Unfortunately, he does not have the support of a running game, which would, of course, be challenged even if it was a capable running game against this Alabama front seven. But we're talking about the 69th rated running game in college football, the 85th total offense in total yardage. Ryan Davis is a nice complementary player, leads the team in receiving, so you would think of him as being the primary target for Auburn, and he is in regards to pass receptions, but he doesn't get downfield. 60 receptions, no touchdowns. Seth Williams, I believe, in watching in particular the Texas A&M game and some other games down the stretch for Auburn, would be the guy that's going to have to hook up with Stidham to create big plays in the passing game. Seth Williams at 20 yards per reception and 5 scores for Auburn. He has to have a big night. Jarrett Stidham needs to be flawless and convert on some big plays for Auburn to have any kind of chance to mount anything offensively, which is kind of ironic because once I looked at the schedule and thought about the teams that Alabama's faced offensively, Auburn may have the second best offense to Texas A&M. I would rate Texas A&M because of the wide receiver play, which is exceptional top to bottom. Travion Williams at running back. Kellen Mond, not exceptional as a passer, but a dual-threat quarterback who has progressed as a thrower. Texas A&M probably is the best offense that Alabama's faced. LSU is more consistent than Auburn, certainly has a stronger running game than Auburn, but more limited than the Auburn Tigers. Auburn might have the second best offense that Alabama's faced, and it's still seriously flawed. We saw what they did against Mississippi State and LSU, giving up the big goose egg. So in this one, it's just too much tide everywhere. The path to victory is minuscule. It relies on Jarrett Stidham being flawless. The running game's going to be non-existent, so I guess they would have to maybe rush for 70 or 80 yards just to keep the Alabama defense honest. Big plays by Seth Williams. A disruptive, just wrecking crew kind of game from Nick Coe, Derrick Brown, and company for Auburn to have a chance. They will keep it relatively close, but Alabama breaks their backs in the second half. Tide wins it over the Tigers. Final, Bama 30, Auburn 13. My take right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We thank you for joining us for the best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, and invite you to leave your predictions down in the comments section as well as we get you prepped for Rivalry Week, starting on Thursday, continuing Friday and Saturday, right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football.